All right. That was great. We have some real investors and a lot of valuable partnerships that could be made in this group, which is very cool. Um, I mean, Alicia just wrote in the chat, but she said like 5 things that would be very valuable in a partnership. So that's really cool. Making sure that we're in that Facebook group, like connecting past this. And then we're gonna do questions. You can chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. I'm gonna try to make it so that it's not like too distracting to me. So just like feel free to write in there as I go. We were just talking before this. It's weird to like not have much feedback because I'm used to being in person, and even with kids, like I can see their faces. I know that they're like digesting what I'm saying. So if you have anything in the chat, please feel free. I can always like stop what I'm saying and address it. But I'm going to do a real deal breakdown on my second property that I bought. But first I'm going to introduce myself and say who I am. So I am Steph Douglass. I am an investor. I'm a founder. I'm also a realtor. So I love the education aspect of my job. Obviously, we started an education company, real estate education company, because we found that there was a need or a lack of education in the real estate realm. And I didn't start my career in this way, as you can see. I graduated from UT Austin 2011. So I've been in Austin for about 13 years. I got a teaching job right out of college. I majored in education. And my mom was a teacher. So it's really interesting to see just like I did what I knew. My dad also grew up he was the son of a construction worker. So we bought fixer-uppers my whole childhood. So it was like, I hated it. Home Depot was like my least favorite place to go. I dreaded it. And now I live there. So it makes sense where I am right now. But I definitely thought that teaching was my calling. I was very good at it. I was a 4th grade math teacher. I knew how to get those kids to like digest math and get these concepts, and that was really cool. But that has just translated into teaching adults and to teaching people how to improve their lives through real estate. So I was a teacher from 2012 to 2018, but I bought my first and second house while I was teaching. In between those two, I moved out of my first house and started renting to a tenant, and I was cash flowing like $500 a month. And to a teacher, $500 a month is I mean, that's a great cash flow for anyone, but I was just like floored by the idea that I could be bringing in money every month by not doing very much. So I then bought a second house, and that's the one I'm going to talk about today. So I'll leave the details out of that one. Then I started investing in in investment properties with partners in 2017. 2017 and 2018 were like my big years in acquiring properties, because now I have 8 properties, 15 doors. So I quickly accelerated. So I was one house, then 3 years later, a second house, and then 2017 to 2018 was like I pushed the pedal. I devoured everything I could in the education world of real estate, podcasts, everything. And then Christina and I co-founded Open House in 2019. And then you guys may follow me on Instagram, but I'm currently back into the first house that I bought in 2013. Because it's been a rental for 5 years, it's just needing some updates. So we're doing that in-house, and we're also building a tiny home in the back to then either Airbnb, which who knows where that will go, or long-term rent. So I have all of those things. And then COVID-19 has just like upended some of those things that I've done. So not upended, but like there's a couple Airbnbs that we have that we're like working through. Luckily, everything is very versatile. So like Chloe said, and like Valerie said, that Airbnb is not as lucrative right now, but actually have someone in both of my Airbnbs for the whole month of April. So awesome, lucky. Okay, stop me if I'm going too fast, but I'm gonna jump into my second deal. So I kind of sprinkled some before and after photos into these slides so that I don't have to like just do before and afters, but those are the most fun part. So I partnered on this second deal with my mom and her girlfriend. They lived in Houston at the time, and I was ready to buy my next house. I was like, listen, look at this cash flow. This is cool. Austin is growing. I know East Austin will continue to grow. And luckily my parents, or my mom and my mom's girlfriend, are like very on board with whatever crazy ideas that I have. They've also, I mean, they're not new to the game as far as fixing stuff goes. My mom married my dad. So they were very on board. They brought most of the cash, and I brought the gumption and the time and the sweat equity and the management. So this was a 2016 purchase. This is just like a really brief rundown. I bought it for $302,000 in 78702. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. There's a little detached garage, which is like very hard to find these days, but that's when I knew that was like, okay, I can make this into a very cash flowing and live-in situation if I can just get the money to rehab that back space. And it's also on a pretty big lot, which is also pretty rough to find right now in 78702, but also very valuable. The main house is 1,300 square feet, which is pretty average. There's some really tiny houses in 78702, but 1,300 square feet felt to me like a mansion. I was so excited. So once, and here's the purchase numbers. We purchased for 302. We put 5% down because I was going to move in because it was going to be a primary residence. And then we spent $40,000 in renovations. My mom had just sold a house and bought a new house, but had a little bit of money left over. I brought some of my savings, and then we used interest-free credit cards. So I had a plan to pay them back. I knew I was going to be able to Airbnb. So I used these knowing that I was going to pay them back before any interest hit. That's the only time that I like condone taking out consumer debt to do a renovation. My monthly mortgage was $2,200, including, which is this PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And that included my PMI of $160 because I didn't put 20% down. So these are my numbers. $2,200 was my monthly, and I was not that worried about the monthly because I knew I was going to be able to supplement it so well. We also bought this in the summer, which meant I was off school, and my mom was also off school. So we had all day, every day. So we had a lot of time to renovate and like oversee the renovation. This is my mom and her girlfriend. They came up when they could. So like weekends, my mom was there more, but Shanna had a job. So they came up and helped. We did a lot of stuff by ourselves. So I'll go more into that also. But here's just like some ways, and we talked about this too, of partnering. So I own 50% of this and they own 50%. So it's a very equal split, even though I didn't bring as much money as they did. I brought them the deal. So the deal source, I brought a lot of sweat equity. I managed it, and then they brought the money. And then I just wanted to talk the partnership docs, even if when you're partnering with your mom or like anyone in your family, it's important to have operating agreements. What happens, if someone wants to sell, what happens if someone dies, like all the really awful things that could happen need to be in that operating agreement. And partnering with family, people were like, you're going to do this with your mom. It was great. We have a close relationship. But there were definitely things that strained our relationship, but we're better for it. Here's the inside of the house. This is a really good example of good bones, as you hear them say. It was really ugly. Like everything was gross. It was brown. Everything was brown. Everything was like very segmented. Right now, everything is open concept and light and bright, and this was the opposite. So like someone said, they're good at organizing space, and I feel like I have a really good idea of what things could look like, and ways to organize walls coming down and stuff like that. So I saw the potential in this, but like when you take a wall down, we just today took a half wall down, and it's a completely different space. So even so, bringing a full wall down is an incredible way to make a difference. And then the laminate floors, someone was talking about flooring. Flooring is a big expense. It can be, you know, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to refloor a house. So that was a way that we saved money. We didn't redo the floors in this house. And it was very, very segmented. So here's a picture of two space, or the exact same space, but with the walls down. We took these two walls, and we had someone do that. So you can see like the 1 2x4 that's kind of curved. That's obviously not permanent. However, they have to brace it while they put the beam in. So it's kind of cool to see in inner workings of how things get built, but you can already see a beam in place there, and they just have to make sure it has a support on the other side. So I was okay with this column being there because the space was already pretty open with those two walls down. One of the bathrooms was really, really rough, and so we renovated that with not very much money. We did a lot of IKEA stuff, which I don't always love, but on a budget, you can pick and choose, and it doesn't have to look totally IKEA. And this bathroom, you know, it just needed paint. It needed a little bit of love, and it goes so far to just put up some shiplap and paint the walls. Let's see. So there was a back patio, and this is just like examples of the space that was pretty affordable to kind of transform. So this was a really dark, damp space, and we took all the walls down. Even though we're losing square footage, we figured that this space wasn't adding value, so we took all the walls down and made it into a screen patio. So the square footage that was listed on the MLS was about 1,450, and without this, it was actually 1,300. So that's another thing that you want to think about when you're making renovations. Like, is this going to add value, or is this going to detract value? In this case, we decreased the square footage, but I think we increased the livability. So I think that I was okay with losing some square footage. Okay, so what we hired for versus what we did ourselves. And I heard a lot of people who were like wanting to do a lot themselves. I've learned so much, and just in this house that I'm sitting in right now, we've been doing a couple little things around the house, but big things for most people. But now everything is going so much faster and so much smoother. And I can remember this house, it was just like every single time we did any small project, we hit a wall, and we were at Home Depot 4 times a day. And for each project, it was a struggle. We were on YouTube, we were everywhere. So I'm really happy that I did it, but it just like is a struggle for a while. We hired people to take the walls down and put the beams up. The back house conversion, which you can see right here, they did a lot of that. They redid an entire roof. They ran the plumbing. They did a little bit of electrical. There was already electrical run to the property, but this was included in that 40 grand. So we did stuff really, really cheap, and we tried to do everything we could ourselves so that we could keep costs down. And it's really shocking. If you have the time, it really saves so much money. And now that I'm like deeper into my career, I will pay people more so, even though I know how to do it myself, because I want it done quickly and really well. But when you're first starting out, I highly recommend to just like try stuff. Doing stuff yourself just like, first of all, gives you an appreciation of Alicia, of like what other people are doing. It also gives you a knowledge. So when you have contractors that are coming to give you quotes, you know what they actually need to do and what the job entails. I can speak so confidently to a contractor now that I literally know how to do. I know how to plumb, I know how to do electricity, you know, like stuff like that. And I can talk to a contractor a lot more knowledgeably, so that they don't, you know, upcharge me, or they don't think don't know what I'm talking about. We did pay people to plumb, do the electrical, the roof on the back house. Drywall is something I don't do myself. drywall is, someone said they needed a drywaller. I cannot impress upon you enough that drywall is so hard. Even just patching things, like patching big holes, I do not know how drywallers do it, and so I just let them do it. The screen patio, we had them do that. And then tile, I also try to hire for. I've been thinking about learning to tile, but I don't know that since I haven't done it yet, that it will be in my skill sets. I like nice tile, and I don't like when I go into my shower and I just like stare at my crooked tile, if there is that. So I would hire for drywall, hire for tile. They also replaced my tank water heater with a tankless, which is a really good way to save space in your kitchen. If your tank water heater takes up any space, it's a good way to open up your kitchen. Okay, how's everyone doing? Good? Okay. Here's what we did ourselves. Demo is an easy thing to do yourself, and that is like, they save some money. They're going to charge you for demo, so it saves some money. We always get a dumpster that rolls up into the driveway. That helps because then you don't have trash everywhere. It's just really nice, and then they'll come and cart it away for you. Those cost about $500, so budget for that. We removed the popcorn, which is the worst job ever. That's something that I probably would hire for it now. It costs about $1.50 a square foot, but we did it. We refinished some floors. So we said that the laminate floors were there, but there were 2 rooms where the laminate floors were not, and it was the original hardwoods. So we sanded, stained, and sealed them. And since then, this past year, my mom had them all, the laminates removed and all of the original hardwoods refinished, and it is so beautiful. So things in phases. We installed the kitchen. We found the cabinets on the side of the road for free. They were just like old IKEA cabinets, and we were just like, okay, these are fine. And they're still there, and they're doing their job. We installed the kitchen sink. So that plumbing we always do trim, we always paint, and then landscaping is a really strong word for what we did, but we kind of cleaned up the front. Okay. So just some pretty before and afters. This was the kitchen on the left. It was rough. It was really rough, and it was very narrow. And then we opened it up. Opening things up, the butcher block countertops, you guys, are so affordable. Not everyone loves them, but for rentals, if you can lacquer them and put some food safe, nice hard sealant on them, they'll last a long time, and they're so much cheaper than stone. I hate to say that, Alicia, because I know you said that you import beautiful countertops, but they're so expensive. So kitchen countertops are always the last thing that we do, and so I always run out of money. So butcher blocks are very popular in any of my houses. Subway tile is so, I know it might be overdone, but like for a rental or for a cheap job, looks clean and it's really cheap. I've been doing square recently, white square, and I think it looks really cool, and it's very, very cheap. It's 9 cents a tile. And then open shelving at the top saves money. I also like it. So those are good, like kitchen hacks. We also are really into this shiplappy thing, which Christine has in her house. Christine, are you seeing this? We do it. I mean, it's just an easy way to make ugly drywall look better. Like I said, drywall is so hard. So that's a easy hack. And then the left is just like kind of overgrown. And then on the right is we basically did very minimal, but we cut the grass and it looks better. Okay, so here's my income numbers. I was very into house hacking. Like I was just like, I want to live for free and I want to cash flow on where I'm living. So, and I was 27. So obviously I'm not into that right now, but I feel like I'm so happy that I did it. I had a roommate, and then my roommate suggested, instead of getting a third roommate, that we Airbnb the room inside, and she managed it for a little bit off of her rent. So that was cool. It's $800 for my roommate, $900 for the inside Airbnb, which not everyone's into that because there's kind of strangers coming through your house. I was not a huge fan, and I was relieved when it was over, but it brought me almost $1,000 a month. So while I was in that kind of hustle phase, I'm into it. People loved it. They always gave me good reviews because they met me. So it was like, it's a good way to not to supplement if you don't want to have a full-time roommate. And then these photos are the back, or what the back little room was. This top left photo is like, if you can see how low the ceilings were right on top of that door. That door is like 6 feet tall. So Whitney, we Airbnb the inside room for probably 2 years. It was maybe a year and a half. Until the back house was like completely like humming, and everybody, like, that the back house is way better because they're not coming into my space. But the room inside it was always booked. Usually it was one person, sometimes a couple, but usually they were gone the whole day. So it was very minimal interaction. You'd have that like occasional person who was like in the kitchen a lot, and that sucked. But here, so this little room with the low ceilings, we popped the ceilings off because the ceilings are dropped because the stuff needs to go into the attic. So in this case, there was no duct work or anything. So we popped the ceiling off and we vaulted the ceilings on this little house, and it made it look way bigger. There was also like crazy amounts of junk in there, and we took it all out and made this little cozy cottage. This Airbnb did really, really well. And now, and I'll get to what's happening now. Okay. So, that's funny. Okay. So for PMI removal, so we were okay paying PMI because we knew we were going to add a lot of value. We removed PMI after a year and a half, which is really quick. But we also did this renovation in like a very, very short amount of time. The main house was done in 6 weeks. So we had a deadline of me and my mom having to go back to school, and doing a renovation when you have, 50 kids all day and coming home, it's not ideal. So we had we had really, really fast timeline, and then we took our time kind of with the back house. But once it was all done and there was no construction going on, you cannot have an appraisal when there's construction happening in your house. So we got it all done. And then a year and a half later, I called my bank and I said, hey, I think that I have increased the value enough to get my PMI off. PMI is private mortgage insurance, meaning you have that is until your LTV, loan to value ratio, is 80% or less. Let's see, did you finance for the 305 selling price or for the ARV? Financed for just the sales price. We didn't finance any of the renovation. So we financed the 305 with the 5% off. And then once we did the PMI removal, that didn't mean that we needed a refinance, anything. All we needed was the bank to send out an appraiser or a broker price opinion. So in my case, they sent out a broker, which was great. I was there. He said, hey, how's it going? Can I look for your house? And then I think it appraised for like $460 or something like that. Crazy, a year and a half later. So since we owed about $280, we owed $290-ish. That was enough to where the loan to value ratio was below 80%, meaning our private mortgage insurance could fall off, which meant our payment went down. So it's pretty cool, kind of getting a raise. And I've done that with 2 houses so far. Okay. And then I really like to think about you don't have to have one static strategy in investing. You're like I did my Airbnb, I had a roommate, and then my partner moved in, my roommate moved out. We didn't rent the inside room as much because we kind of started growing out of it. And then once the back house was up and running, like it didn't really make sense to rent the inside, because then we were just like, being greedy. We were making enough to cover the whole mortgage plus, and both of us live for free. So it made sense to stop doing that. And then right now, my mom and her girlfriend have moved from Houston to Austin. They were living in like a 5,000 square foot house with 5 bedrooms, and they moved into that tiny little vaulted ceiling house in the 500 square foot house, and they live there and manage the front house Airbnb. So they're like loving their lives. My mom stopped teaching. She's devoted her whole life to real estate like I have. And she now owns an Airbnb management company, which is interesting in these times. But we've figured out like we're okay as far as income goes. We've dropped the prices. We're definitely not like in the optimal range of Airbnb income, but we are paying my mortgages both are being paid still where I'm Airbnb. So that's positive. Who knows where the future will hold, but who knows what the future will hold. But so far, so good. But in normal times, they're making about $5,500 a month with that front house Airbnb, that 3.2, and paying their mortgage plus $3,000. They've refinanced since to a 15-year mortgage, and we have a 2.8% interest rate on that house now. So it's really awesome. Their plan has been to like have a free place to live once they retire at 65. So in this case, they will have a really like secure spot, and really it's a compound. So all of our family can move there and live for free. Yes, Christina, normal cash flow for investors is much, much, much. It's like I'm like $100 to $300 a month. So this is like a ridiculous. The sequence of events for this really worked out well, but it was kind of because we were able to be in there, kind of take it slow. If your neighbor just sold a house with the exact same dimensions as you, could the appraisal use that as the appraisal comp? That they could use. You need multiple comps in an appraisal. So usually they pick 3 comps in the neighborhood, and it's a really complicated method to figure out what the value of a house is. But any house that's sold on your street at a really high price will definitely help your appraisal. Let's see, what are the use cases for the folks that are currently Airbnb? Oh yeah, so the one in my mom's, this 3.2, this one, bachelorette parties. There's like a layer of glitter on the floor after every person leaves. So super, there's also good families that will stay there. It varies, but so many bachelorette parties. And just because it's it's good design, and good design, kind of, it's just like very cheap, but people love it. So, right now during COVID, good question. Right now, the people that are in one of my houses, they're refugees from New York. They came here because they like kind of saw this, didn't see it coming, but in the very beginning, and now they've been there. They're going to be there for 6 weeks total. So in the front house, there's a lot of people that are saying like, I just need time out of my house. So they'll come. There's people from San Antonio that have come. There's people from Dallas. So it's it differs, but definitely slower and less money, a lot less money. So we're hoping that it goes up. It's a weird time for sure. Okay, I think that is it. Yeah, now we can go to questions. Celeste, do you want to? Well, you guys can type your questions, or if you want to raise your hand, you can ask your question like with your voice. Celeste, do you see people?
Yeah, I don't see any. Zoe has a question.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a formula you use for estimating cash flow?
So usually I'll do a couple things when I'm looking at a property. Usually I know the area really well, but I'll go on Airbnb and I'll like pretend to book something. So I'll say like, okay, because the prices that you see on the calendars on Airbnb aren't always the prices that are actually being charged. So I'll like pretend to book something and try to figure out like what the average is. I definitely use like my experience from my Airbnbs. So that will help. And then I'll do like 17 days a month, which is pretty conservative just because mine have like a 95% occupancy rate usually because I'm really active about like managing the calendar. So I'll figure out how much like the minimum that I could make is, and then obviously go to a mortgage calculator and figure out a conservative, meaning like a higher amount that I probably will have to pay for my mortgage, and that's where I take the difference of those two. Yes, that Christina and I talked about that earlier. So pulling permits is not my area of expertise. We've pulled some permits for like smaller things. You're supposed to pull permits for almost everything. We were just talking about you're supposed to pull permits for windows. You're supposed to pull permits for changing your doors. So we definitely haven't played exactly by the rules. However, we've done like really major stuff that like we just haven't we've like skirted the rules a little bit. But it's very common. We have like a lot of friends that are like doing similar things that don't pull permits because the city makes it really hard. But the pulling permits definitely makes your budget longer, or your budget higher and your timeline longer. Sorry, let's see. If you haven't been to the city, you should go. Even if you have if you have a question about like what you can do on your property, I would definitely recommend going in person. It's on Barton Springs and Riverside basically, and it's a really interesting place. So I would definitely recommend it. They'll tell you everything you need to know about your property. Sometimes when you go a second time, they'll tell you different things, which is really, really frustrating. So the city is tricky. We can talk more about that, Chloe. My mom has more experience with that too. Kara, partnership agreements. When you and your moms are living on site, is that person fully responsible for mortgage? Oh, yes, that's a good question. So when I was living there, I was responsible for everything. So the mortgage, I was responsible for any like even capital expenditures. So like the water heater went out and I had to replace it because I was the one keeping all of the income from the Airbnbs. Now that she's there, she keeps everything. So I don't see any of that money, but she puts it in an account. And if anything happens or if she's doing improvements, then she uses that money. But that can be any way that you want to do it. So I've seen people have an agreement where someone's living there, but then they give their partner like 10% of the income that comes in, or it could be any. There's no right way to do an operating agreement. It's just what you agree on. Let's see.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute Rochelle and Christina too so that they can.
Oh, yes. Jump in, please. Do you have any advice around getting your space rented out quickly? Christina, you're good at that too.
I just asked to ask a question.
And I think that's really good because there's like you can list your space on Airbnb or on Craigslist, but like listing it on Craigslist once is not being aggressive about getting your space rented out. Yeah. So like Christina actually, she was the one that enlightened me to Facebook. Facebook is really cool because you can like if someone has a bunch of guns in their profile picture, like you don't want to rent to them probably, or whatever it is that you're not into and they are, you can kind of see their personalities on their Facebook.
Yeah, that happened to us at our commercial space. We were trying to find like a food tenant, and there's this guy who's, I don't know, he's kind of strange. And then I looked him up on Facebook and he was like saying really sketchy things on there and like being just like inappropriate. And we were like, red flag. No.
Yeah. Okay. So did you create a spreadsheet with your partner to evaluate investment properties for your ballpark? Actually, use the bigger pockets. We're not supposed to be pumping them up because they're kind of, but they have really good tools. They have calculators. So you can put all the numbers into their calculators, and they'll do like long-term spreadsheeting for you, which is kind of nice. So you'll see like, okay, if it appreciates 4% a year over the next 20 years, what will it be worth? What will my ROI be? So yeah. And also I have spreadsheets for each property. Like I have a file for each one. But I don't know if it's so much formulas, but more like my numbers and what's actually happening and what I foresee happening in the future.
I don't think you can
I was going to add too, I do have a spreadsheet for that. Like Steph, when you're talking about calculating how you sort of calculate average nights, one thing I recommend and that I always do is to be super, super conservative number, a middle sort of average, run of the road, and, you know, really high end, like aggressive would be awesome if, or like knowing that seasons like South by area sale are going to be really high to kind of offset. Because I want to see both the lowest, you know, especially the lowest number to know worst case scenarios. I've never calculated with 0, which is my current occupancy. That's a mistake. But I think it is a really good idea to have both number of nights per month. Like on the low end, I would do like 12 at like a super, super cheap rate. And then the high end do as high as, you know, 25 at a much higher rate. And kind of seeing those and manipulating those. And that's a very simple formula to do in a spreadsheet because you just have 2 multipliers and you can manipulate those numbers to see lots of different scenarios and not just the one sort of ideal.
Yeah. I like that too. I mean, you did that with the church, and that was cool to see, like, even at the not worst case scenario, I shouldn't say that either.
Thought it was. I really truly thought that.
Even at the lowest, when in a normal time, then we would still cover our expenses, but then maybe on a hot month, we would make up for that month that we were low. It makes it look, I mean, covering your expenses is the goal. Cash flowing is really awesome. And seeing the spectrum is really valuable. Okay. Do you have any tips for hiring a contractor if you don't have the background knowledge? Okay. I would say at least 3 quotes.
Yeah.
I would also say it's really cool when you have a contractor come through, you're like taking notes and learning from that contractor, because the next time someone comes through, you're using the knowledge that you gained from the first contractor on the second one.
Yeah.
So you're just like building that knowledge. Even if you have literally no idea, that contractor that comes through, ask him as many questions as you can.
Yeah.
Because then you can just use that as ammunition for your next guy or girl.
I feel like contractors always kind of change also. Like sometimes it's like, oh, one year they're great, and the other, you know, next month it's like they're super busy. And so I think like always getting referrals also, like even though I have a lot of contractors that I use, I always am like asking people for someone they've used recently that they really liked. We have people that we've worked with before and continue to work with also. So
Yeah.
getting referrals.
And you're going to go on you're either paying for really quality, really fast work, or you're paying a lot less for potentially not as quality work, and maybe it will take a little bit longer. But you're like somewhere on that scale. So like if you're trying to get like really, really, really cheap work done, just know that you're paying for what you're getting usually. But in a lot of ways, like now that I have my knowledge, I'll just get someone to do like the bare minimum, and then I'll finish it out. And then that saves me so much money on the back end. So if you're like in the beginning phases, that could be an option too. Just have someone come in and do like the plumbing, and then you put the vanity in and connect the pipes and stuff.
And I'm not a handy person, so I will always hire out. But I think if you're getting cheap labor, like it's never worth it. Like I've done it before, and you're literally just like chasing people down and like having to be such a manager and making sure like you're messaging them constantly. It's just like I've found that it isn't worth it. But also never give the money up front, ever.
Yes. No. And that kind of tells you a little bit about how they're managing their business also. Is like we have a contractor right now he helped us with a project recently, and he did everything without us paying him a dime, and he did it without us having to hound him. He was there, in and out, done, and it was definitely more expensive. And afterwards, we were like, that was so worth it. So if you have a budget, I would like splurge for the person who is like a little bit better at communicating, a little bit better at showing up. Which all I know you have stuff to add to this one.
Yeah, because you probably won't know that when you're hiring someone if you're talking to them for the first time. So definitely recommendations from people like groups like this that have worked with contractors, and then specifically ask the contractor if they can provide references, both images of their work and contact information for projects that they've completed. And you can talk to people who've worked with them and ask the types of questions that, that are going to help you understand what their workflow is like. Do they show up on time? Do they get the job done on time? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Referrals. We have a spreadsheet that we should share also. And I think this group will be a really good resource for all of these things.
Yeah.
Because, like
Facebook group too.
Yeah. Because like going to Yelp is not, it's like people on Yelp have the computer skills and they're going to charge a lot more. So like finding people who are really quality, and then people can vouch for them.
Yeah. And you can use the search in the Facebook group. If you just search for things, like I often do that. I'm like, oh, I think someone posted about a plumber or something, and I like search in the Facebook group and like pick that person out, and then maybe write it again, like, hey, has anyone worked with this person recently?
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. Okay, converting garage into separate mini studio unit. Good idea to get Airbnb short-term rental. How does it impact resale value? I love this. I love this strategy. I think it's so great. I think in Austin, it's not everyone needs a garage. I definitely have clients that want, like buyer clients that want a garage for sure, but it's really rare. And I love the idea of converting a single family house into a 2-unit or like a unit and a half, basically. So I love it. I would even say, I just had a client and friend, the owner of Factora, the founder of Factora. She bought a house with a 2-car garage, and she turned it into a studio with a kitchen. So it could be a long-term rental, and she's long-term renting it right now. So it's like a big space with like bed goes here, your kitchen is tiny kitchen, but it's still there. So you have everything you need for a long-term rental. And that's what I'm doing with my little tiny house back here. I could have very well just done like a limited just like space where someone could sleep and go to the bathroom, but I made sure to put a kitchen in there so that it could be versatile for times like these. Let's see. Will you be evaluating investment properties differently post COVID-19? Yes. So definitely, I think so one of my properties has a little studio unit that doesn't have a kitchen. So it's just like purely Airbnb, and it brings in so much money because it's in a really good location on Cesar Chavez in Chicon. But it's not great I couldn't long-term rent it because there's not a kitchen. So I definitely, moving forward, will make sure that there's like water connection. So when you're going through a house that you're potentially buying, you want to make sure that it will be an easy, there's water on the other side of the wall, or you're not having to dig through the slab to put water where you want to put water. So that will be a change, I think, to make sure that there's actually like a long-term potential so that I can be more versatile and creative. Okay, partnership agreements. How are you structuring these and negotiating that structure between everyone involved and making them formal? Okay, so partnership, me, Christina, and Michelle own a property in San Antonio. Actually, we no longer own it, but seller financed it, so we still have a note on it. Yeah, and seller financed it, sold it to someone. But we brought it together, and we built a operating agreement with a lawyer, and she basically sent us questions to answer. So like, what happens if someone wants to sell, right, guys? Anything else?
Yeah, it was just an operating agreement. It's pretty standard. You can also get one on LegalZoom or whatever.
Yeah, like just a template.
Yeah, and it's, you always should have one. Just, even like I bought a property with my sister, and like we're both nothing's going to happen or whatever, but just in case, you can always be like, we have this document, so
Yeah.
we have this in place.
And I think negotiating the structure, it's really interesting, because it's just, there's not a roadmap for it. So as far as our deal goes, we each brought the same exact amount of money, pretty much the same experience and the same amount of time spent. And so we just split it down this middle, not the middle, we were each a third owner. But we were also invested in a church where Rochelle's going to do a lot of the work. Me and Christina didn't have as much time. So we put up money, but we don't have, and Kara's on this call too. Kara's involved in that. But so everybody has a different ownership piece according to how much time there's and money that they're committing to the project.
I think this question, I hear this question a lot of like how to structure a partnership deal. And I think ultimately like figure out what you want and structure the deal that way, or at least start that way, right? Like a negotiation is a dialogue and a conversation. So both parties are going to have an interest of, what percentage equity they want, how much work they want to do, how much money they want to bring to the table. So identifying those factors up front of like what each person is bringing to the table, and then evaluating that and having a conversation about what the actual value of that is, to me is like quite simple. It's and knowing that it's going to be a conversation. It's not just, okay, up front, this is the deal. I want 50%.
Yeah.
I want this. You may get that, like if that's what you want. Sometimes people are cool with that and it's great and it's an easy conversation. So awesome. Like everyone's on the same page, or it's just a conversation. And I think ultimately, like anything else, you talk about it, you figure it out. Some people might have to give a little bit or not, and it may even make the deal not make sense. If you can't get, I've talked to deals with people who weren't willing to give me the amount of equity that I wanted. And so it's just an easy sort of walk away point for me. So again, I think know what you want, know what you have to offer, and know what the other people are bringing to the table.
And partnering with people, it's not just so like, I wouldn't just partner with anyone. Like, honestly, if you're thinking like you have someone in mind, but you already have like anxiety around bringing it up, like that's not a good sign. Like it should be a conversation, like Rochelle said, that flows. And if you are getting a lot of like hitting a brick wall with someone, like, yeah, move on, because it's not worth the headache.
Not worth
Yeah.
it.
I like what you said, Rochelle, like talking about it beforehand, as far as like the little things, like we, in the church that we're all invested in, we have it down to like the hours, like the number of hours that someone's going to spend. So we talked about like, okay, this is realistically my schedule and her schedule and her schedule. And here's how, like realistically, how much time I will be able to devote to this. And that's just so important so that you don't have any resentment moving forward. Like clear definitions of roles, especially if you're partnering with someone who you don't know well, I would say, even if you do know them well. But yeah, so I've had luck. I've partnered with my mom, my uncle, my friends, my sister, and it's always like just hashing that out to begin with. Okay, let's see. Where's the best place to go? Yes, zoning, Madison. Thank you. Yes. 100-page document. Okay, cool. Anyone else have questions? Rochelle, Christina, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that was really helpful. I feel like I know the story, but it's always like so intriguing and exciting.
Yeah. And Christina, how much do you think I could sell that for?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Honestly, like I would say in the 600s at this point, with all the things that you have going on back there. Like all the rental income you have.
Yeah.
What have you thought about?
I was thinking high 500s.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy. So it's been 4 years or left 3.5 years and 40,000, maybe more now, probably closer to like 55, 60K invested, but like a consistently cash flowing property. So it's definitely possible. There's not, in 78702, it's really hard to find a livable property at 300,000 now, obviously, but there's areas of Austin that you can see the trends. And like, let us help you if you need help with that. I know Austin so well, and so does Christina and Rochelle. So we love talking about this stuff. Yeah.
I will also put in a plug for Steph and Christina, who, as you can see from this presentation, Steph has an extremely creative filter with how to look at properties and see potential. And, you know, both Steph and Christina have obviously done that with what they've built at Open House and with the properties that they own. That's part of the decision that you're making when you're hiring a trusted realtor, is someone who knows and can help you with that kind of thing. So especially, I can't believe I just said especially for those of you who have said that you're a little bit intimidated by a construction project, um, it's you will learn the most by doing. Like, I promise you that jumping into something, and if that means going in with a partner that is going to make it feel a little bit more easy, 100% do that. Find that person as well, but also work with a team of people who can help you look at deals and find properties that most other people are overlooking in this market because they're ugly, or because the back house is falling down, or because, right, like, because
Yeah.
there's 2 toilets in one bathroom. Like, there's weird shit out there, but those are the best money makers and the ones that are going to have the best ROI when you're talking about your cash on cash return when you're doing major improvements. So yeah, just plug for their filters that they
Thank
have
you.
on this property.
I am not a handy person. I really am not, like, truly.
Yeah.
But I've definitely taken on renovation projects being an unhandy person. So, and I
Yeah.
don't do a majority of the stuff. I'm like, what can I do? I paint, do like little things here and there, like learned little things here and there. But that doesn't mean you can't take on a project.
Totally.
That's a really good thing to add, Christina. I've like, not everyone wants to spend the time, or, you know, everyone can do it, because I did it, but not everyone wants to. And that's totally okay too. You can still be a real estate investor without getting your hands dirty, which is Christina has proven. Rochelle does a lot herself too.
You too. I learned too. Same as you said though, like I did it on the first one because I wanted to learn and be able to have intelligent conversations with contractors. I have no desire to be the one physically doing the work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. In this like COVID-19 though, I feel like it's a gift of time, and I've found my project bug again, and I've had so much fun. So
Yeah.
Working on a trailer. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It's fun. It totally is fun. Like, I love, like, even if I can't do too much, I'm like, if I can get some work done, like, myself, it's so empowering.
It's problem solving. It's like,
Yeah.
that's all it is. So you're looking at a problem with a critical eye and figuring out what you can do, and it's also being hella resourceful, and also having the right tools. So if you need to know about saws, or like a starter kit for renovating a house, I can steer you in the right direction. Really fast. Okay, a couple more questions, but we'll do them really fast. Areas I see trending up, obviously, like East Austin. I bet on East Austin in 2013. I bought this house for 180, and I could sell it today for 400. So like, East Austin is not going anywhere, and it's also continuing to move east because it's the only place that Austin has to move. North, you hit Round Rock. There's still so much of Austin that's east that has not been. There's houses that are less than 200,000 in Austin city limits. People are sleepy on them because people don't want to be past 130, but people didn't want to be past airport. People didn't want to be past 183. So think in that it might not be like crazy cool right now, and people might not want to spend a lot of money on rent there yet. But even if you're breaking even on a property, like, it's going to go up. Austin is growing. It's growing. It's continuing to grow. So,
long term. Yeah.
Long term, exactly. Thank you. That's like, I'm a buy and hold. That's another distinction that we made earlier in a talk, was I buy for long-term growth, and cash flow is just nice. Some people flip. I don't see flipping as being a real estate investor. I think that's a job. So flipping is cool. I think I don't like that's way riskier to me than like buying something that you're going to hold for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or pass to your children. Like, how exciting is it to like build generational wealth through real estate? It's very exciting is the answer. And then real estate deals can be found in this current financial climate. I think we're about to be on a little plateau, honestly. I think that I think there's a lot of opportunity in the next couple months. And I already plan to buy in 2020, so I'm kind of excited that houses are going to flatten out a little bit, or house prices. is what I think. Obviously, this is all speculation.
Yeah, it's already happening though. I mean, if you're watching, if you're anything like me, have, notifications set up either on an actual search or realtor.com or whatever app you're using, right? I'm seeing like insane price drops, like 50, 60, 70K price drops on houses, which to me is an indicator that there's a lot of room on a lot of houses that have been sitting. And because sales have slowed, purchase transactions have slowed in this market. I mean, think of this as a room for negotiation. Like you have so much more leverage than you would have had even 3 weeks ago if you're looking at any specific properties.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in the next couple of months it's gonna be more of the same, but good
I'm
time to
working
think about it.
with Rochelle right now to get my finances together, refinance my house, and like buy another house. So I am excited to see what happens.
Oops. Yeah, I'm very interested to see, just to watch it. And we have buyers that are still buying right now because their jobs are safe and they're like, yeah, this is a good time. So I think that there will be, if anything, it will be even better for us. It's not going to be like 2008 by any means, as far as the mortgage, like we're not going to hit rock bottom on prices. And I don't think that Austin will go down. What do you guys think?
For the housing market.
Yeah.
I mean, someone asked us this earlier. I just think it's way too early to know. Like, it's crazy that it feels like for me this quarantine has been like months, and it's been 2 weeks.
3.
So,
3 weeks. 3
Has it
weeks. What?
Or 2 weeks.
I don't know. Anyway, but I don't know, honestly. Like I know when the market crashed in 2008,
Yeah.
12, like Austin kind of stayed flat, and I'm interested to see what happens with this. Like I don't think it's going to be, I don't know. I still think there's a lot of tech jobs here and people are still working. So I think in the city a lot of people still have money and job security, but a lot of people don't. So, and a lot of people who need to sell their house or might need to sell their house after this. So it's just going to be interesting to see. I think it's too soon to say. And, but I'm definitely watching it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknown factors and like if this then that variables. And I mean, I have been listening to every economist and mortgage-backed securities expert I can, and it's like someone will have an opinion one day, and then the next day the Fed does something, or I mean, they're purchasing mortgage-backed securities in an effort to reduce interest rates, which is not reducing interest rates because they're double the volume in the pipeline right now. Like things are nuts. And so much, just like everything with COVID-19, is super unpredictable. So I think anyone trying to make speculation long term, I don't know that there's really any. I mean, no one can predict the future, literally. So it's really hard to say. I do agree with Christina that Austin is extremely insulated. We are thankfully very well protected by a pretty good economy, but we also just took a $350 million hit with the South by being canceled, that I think, we all know, right, is having an impact on small businesses and a lot of other things. But there is a housing shortage here. So I think it will actually be more of a balance than any type of major recession or anything here. But nationally, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, nationally, so true.
And this is what happens. Like, I mean, obviously couldn't predict this, but like, that's when you invest, like that's what you have to predict. Like this is normal. We couldn't always be in a what is it, a bull market. So
right.
This is what the market always does, and that's what it's supposed to do, and that's just normal. And that's why I think we're big fans of buy and holds, because I mean, even with the stock market, if you hold on, you're going to get that money back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also, larger picture too. When we talk about investing in real estate and building wealth, we're talking about financial freedom, which is not just real estate, right? That's having a diverse portfolio, that's having diverse streams of income, that's having a good amount of money in savings and in cash on hand. I'm really shocked in like Airbnb threads how quickly people are complaining, like, I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage payment because I haven't had rent for this month. That is mind-blowing to me that like I just don't think you can be a true investor. Like, I understand we're all in a different financial situation, but if you are going to be a true investor, you need to have all of your finances in really good shape. And that's step one, not, not trying to jump into a deal, spend all your money, try to find a partnership, whatever. It really is getting your own financial foundation set up so that you can withstand any number of things that could happen, even if it wasn't, this major of a crash.
Yeah, weathering a storm, and
Mhm.
that's the name of the game when you're thinking, and that's why we think so creatively about real estate, is that we're looking at things where we're holding for a long time. We have versatile income streams, multiple income streams, and we can like pivot if we need to. So like Chloe was saying, travel nurses, like there's so many options for us as far as income streams go, and then also being able to cover the whole thing by yourself if you need to. Obviously that's not ideal, but like in this situation, if you aren't able to, then that could be devastating. Okay. Oh, nice, Shayla.
That's cool. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the Facebook group. Do we have a link to the Facebook group?
Here, let me grab
I'm
it.
gonna put it on there.
I usually include it in the thank you email that goes out tomorrow.
Perfect. Okay.
And then I'll send Alex the list of everyone who came so she knows that they're legit and they're allowed to be in there.
Thank you guys so much for listening to me, and I feel like I was just like in a vacuum talking at my computer, but I appreciate everybody being here, and I'm excited that we're growing this community. I feel like it's really important to have community, especially at this time, especially in this world where everybody has something to give, and you can learn so much from each other. So
Much. That was really helpful.
Thanks, Steph.
all right, bye y'all. Thank you.